2025, the first show. Hard time getting everything synced up, then my apologies. But we're here, we're up and running. Here we go, rock and roll. Welcome to the new year. It ain't going to be like last year. We're going to kick some ass this year. We got a great poll for everybody tonight. It's a very important poll. Should you avoid food from Japan because the entire country was covered in deadly radioactive fallout, and the radioactive fallout never goes away? And so you're going to poison yourself if you go there or drink the water, breathe the air, or eat the food. And you got to be very careful of buying any products from Japan. It's so sad. And they shouldn't have poisoned the whole planet, I suppose. Steadfast Noon, NATO, which shouldn't exist. Right? NATO was created in response to the Soviet Union. And so when the Soviet Union was dissolved, you know, where all the patents were dissolved and everybody lost their pensions also, then NATO should have been dissolved too. Now they have nuclear weapons, nuclear aircraft carriers. They have 60 aircrafts, all of them can carry nuclear weapons. And there's no one to hold them accountable. They're completely out of control. They're like Israel. Completely out of control. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, they like to give themselves names to cover up what they are, which is the definition of evil. 60 aircraft in training flights for a period of 2 weeks. What do you need to do with 2 weeks? How much money does it cost to fly each of those planes and those ships and those troops and everything else? All the aircraft taking part in Steadfast Noon exercise are fighter jets capable of carrying the United States nuclear warheads, or Britain's, or France's. Pretty crazy, right? Chashma's nuclear power plant, Unit 5, to create 40,000 jobs. But so why not build geothermal where you don't need to waste all your money? Because the more jobs you got, the more expensive it is to have the electricity, right? So why do that? Because they want to make it seem like it's very important to the economy. But it's the opposite, because it burdens the taxpayers, the ratepayers, with very, very exorbitant prices for their electricity. Indirectly during the peak period of construction. New Ohio law designated nuclear power as green energy. You can't call nuclear green. It's the most resource intensive energy on the entire planet. And so calling it green is kind of crazy. Not kind of crazy, actually. It's the only way that they can get people to consider it. It's a blatant lie. Everybody knows it's a blatant lie, including the people that are participating in the blatant lie. And then they have the crazy, for the last while, a couple of years, been calling it clean. Now they don't write an article typically without the word clean everywhere. Zero carbon emissions is one of the ways that they suggest that it's clean. But it's not, every nuclear power plant needs 2 gas, oil, coal plants to run it. And so each reactor, and there's multiple reactors on a site, each reactor needs 4,500 tons of water a minute to keep cooler and melt down. And what happens, so think of a 1-ton pickup truck can only carry 1 ton of water. So you need 4,500 of those trucks every minute. And so imagine standing on the side of the road with 4,500 1-ton pickup trucks pass you every minute. It's ridiculous, right? So it's an enormous amount of energy. They need gas, oil, and coal plants. So to suggest, even for a millisecond of a second, rather, that there's no emissions, is why would you trust such dishonesty, see? supporters say. I've seen a lot of stories where it looks like they're trying to distance themselves from the law for some reason this year. Because you can go after them for these lies, and just because they quoted supporters, they don't give you names or anything like that, and they didn't do any fact checking, so they can be charged under the racketeering statutes. They will be. Nuclear can never be better for the environment. It's better for the environment. Supporters / the batshit crazy pro-nuclear kooks also say that while intermittent resources like solar and wind can help meet the demand, they don't do it as well as nuclear energy. Again, this is absurdness. There's 660 gigawatts of solar came online this year, or last year, 2024. It's equal to over 700 large nuclear plants coming online in 12 months. Last year, nuclear lost more reactors than it came online, which meant it was a negative towards the energy grid. So this is the wishes of a dying industry that is long past its usefulness. It was used for nuclear weapons, right? The fuel comes out of the reactor after 14 months. That's what it's all about, the fuel cycle, because now it's breeder fuels producing plutonium and uranium, but most of the nuclear weapons are plutonium. And so that's what it's used. That's all it's good for, is breeding the plutonium, which is 100% man-made atoms, and there's nothing on the planet that has an immune trigger. And they also put this connotation according to the blog. So they're distancing themselves. On the opposing side, there's currently no existing solution in the United States to handle the waste. Well, the problem with the waste is splitting atoms. And it's splitting so many atoms per site, per reactor, that even without a meltdown or a nuclear accident, eventually that will exterminate all the species, because it never goes away. It bioaccumulates. And it doesn't just remain radioactive for thousands of years. It's produced in isotopes for hundreds of thousands of years, and they're released directly into the environment. There is no containment, the blog says. This is not the words of a journalist. We haven't seen the words of a journalist in many decades. The journalists now are the little monkeys for the monsters. The House version stirred up controversy by classifying nuclear energy as green. And Government DeWine was under intense political pressure from several environmental groups to veto the bill, according to the NSS. He nevertheless signed it into law December 19th, 12 days ago. Blog. And so, if they're not going to do their own research, why would you want to read their medias? Because you will just get a major amount of propaganda. RF developed plans to attack nuclear power plants, Russia, and factories in Japan and South Korea. The Russians' command has developed, so is South Korea, so is Britain, so is France. They developed plans to attack Russia's nuclear sites and infrastructures, including a list of 160 targets, nuclear power plants, bridges, tunnels, industrial facilities, strikes on nuclear power plants. Yeah, but what's the benefit of striking a nuclear power plant? You don't even have to strike the nuclear power plant. You just got to strike the transmission lines, because they run on external power. The rest of the objects are civilian infrastructures, including roads and rail tunnels in Japan. No one really cares about Japan. As long as you don't strike the nuclear plant, good riddance. Energy infrastructure is also on the list, including 13 power plants, nuclear complexes, as well as fuel processing plants. Japan doesn't have fuel processing plants. Or do they? I don't know. I didn't know they had fuel processing plants. I know they've been They've been at it for 27 years trying to build one. They still haven't, they're nowhere near complete. So that's fear-mongering. Why would Russia attack the nuclear facilities? It's already a nuclear wasteland. Why bother releasing more radiation? The Non-Regulatory Commission, also known as the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, approved NextEra's revised emergency plan after a 2-year review. So what they wanted to do, and we've covered NextEra Energy a lot. They're a big energy provider in the United States. They own nuclear power facilities also at Turkey Point, St. Lucie in Florida, Point Beach in Wisconsin, Seabrook disaster in New Hampshire. And they wanted to put all the plans of the same, but each plant would need its own plans, right? Each plant has its own evacuation routes. You don't need evacuation routes for gas plants or oil plants or coal plants, just nuclear plants. That should have been your first. Whenever you hear you need evacuation routes because of a power plant, it's no longer a power plant. It's a threat to the future of humanity. And the species in particular. And particularly the pollinators. Once the pollinator goes, well, we're not too far behind it. And guess what? We're not too far behind. For all NextEra Energy nuclear power plants that ensure key safety staff remain on site at each plant. If the plant melts down, everybody runs away. You can't stay there. Lethal doses. If the plant blows up like we've seen at Fukushima over and over and over, you can't stay on the site. Lethal doses anywhere. You're ineffective. And so if you're knowledgeable, you're best to be off the site so when you can finally start thinking about trying to do some mitigation, at least to get the knowledgeable people available, right? Again, this industry is sadistic. There's no checks and balances now after 80 years. It's a threat to everybody and every species. So why pretend it's not? They originally filed an amendment that requests included some staffing changes, proposed remote response measures during unusual events. Rather than site-specific responses for each plant, they wanted it all to be the same. But every plant is different. Every plant has a different location. It's got different quirks, and these plants got 12,000 quirks. Every maintenance, every 14 months, you have to do 12,000 different types of maintenances. They're very fragile. They spend $100 million a year just on maintenance. So, like geothermal, you don't have to spend literally nothing. A couple of buckets of grease. You don't need thousands of contractors to come in and get poisoned every 14 months. Environmental activists warn about the dangers of a nuclear power station in Koppal. I'm guessing this is India. I can't remember. There's a doctor, again, that we're familiar with, speaking out. Significant risk to the local inhabitants and the ecological system. Not just the local, it's the worldwide. The radiation is very mobile. It has no problem traversing the entire planet and assimilating itself into your food supplies. 54 international harvester woody used to carry Americans' nuclear missile handlers. Why did they continue to use that up until the 90s? Because you stood out like a sore thumb, right? But if you try to make sense of what the nuclear industry is doing, you're going to end up in a kooky tune house. Did we detonate? What if we detonated a nuke on the moon? Every year we hear this story show up again, right? And I'm not sure what the idea is. I think it's just that's the cycle of stupid. What if we blew up a bunch of journalists on the moon? I think it'd make more sense, wouldn't it? Be affected by fallout from the moon? I'm not going there. Zimbabwe to work with the Russians and the international degenerate agencies to establish nuclear energy. Zimbabwe, whose front lawns are full of diapers and boxes and garbage, who can't even provide electricity or water for the country, and you got to give them the most dangerous technology in human history because you're looking forward to another meltdown. International Atomic Energy Agency says Fukushima didn't melt down, sure. Nano nuclear energy stocks prices are down 3.7%. They're always back and forth. They don't have a product. Their whole existence is based on stocks and 14 banks that will buy their stocks and artificially inflate it, the stocks, for a couple of weeks, and then they'll sell their stocks, and then all the new investors, mom and pop investors, will lose their monies. They do that every 2 or 3 weeks. There's 14 banks doing it. That's the cycle. Now, Nano doesn't have reactors. It's not trying to build a reactor. It doesn't have a site. It doesn't even have an application into the regulatory agencies for the reactors or the licenses. Why would you invest in something that don't exist? And even if they were like going to try to come up with a so-called small modular reactor, do you really want to wait 30, 40, 50 years to get some return on your money? Because the 14 banks and financial institutions that are propping up these small modular reactors are going to cash in every 2 weeks. They're going to say, oh, well, we're going to pull back. They're going to pull out their 2.5 million shares and get paid by the investors who thought the stocks were rising. But they are only rising because the 14 investment banks are buying their shares and then dumping it every 2 weeks. It's called a scam in everybody else's book. It's called a Ponzi scheme, legally, by the way. Pushback. Happy nuclear for the tech kings in industry. Happy nuclear. Happy nuclear. I don't know if I heard that one before. I'm going to get it tattooed on my forehead. Happy nuclear. There is no nuclear renaissance. The renaissance is in solar. And geothermal is right on the corner. Geothermal is about to show up, curb stomp, gas, oil, coal, and stupid nuclear. Executives in the nuclear power industry are clinking glasses this New Year's Day with the high hopes to make nuclear great again. Let's make anti-nuclear great again. Everybody got to make something great again now. Technology industry barons, and this is what they turn to, because the nuclear industry doesn't have anybody that resonates with the population in any country, let alone worldwide. And so they put these wealthy traders, human trash, like Gates and Bezos, are scrubbing nukes to make them presentable as a clean energy source. They're scrubbing nukes. Like they tried every trick in the book, and still this industry is flopping. Like a fish out of water, it's just flopping away, waiting to die. And it's on a countdown timer to death. That's what this industry is. And all it produces is diseases. Right? They can't contain the radioactive fallout from the fuel pools. That's the end of us and humanity and the species as we know it. We're on a clock. So we need to take them down, and hopefully the future generation won't hate us too much. Starting on day one, it will approve new drilling, new pipelines, new refineries, new power plants, new reactors. But you can give the nuclear industry all the money you want, and they won't produce nothing. They'll just steal everything. This is what they do. That's all they know how to do. It's what it's all about, actually. They got everything in the planet given to them. They got every media on the planet on their side. They got all the universities on their side, / schools of mass destruction. They can't get anything to work. It's because it's all inbreeds, right? In Deep Blue, Massachusetts, the State House is lit up with green lights for clean nuclear. So now green lights mean clean nuclear? The Nuclear Innovation Alliance, a non-profit. Really? Non-profit? Anybody really believe that one? Advanced Nuclear Energy Promoter. Advanced nuclear energy, the time of small modular reactors. You can't be a promoter of something that doesn't exist. And where's the Geothermal Innovation Alliance? Which exists, and we can have it up and running in Cheeks time. Long before nuclear can get the spade in the soil, well, it'll be up and running. In fact, every community can produce its own geothermal plant and sell their energy to the community, and they're going to be paid off right away. Within a couple of years, they got their money back. Then they can drop the price of electricity down to next to nothing because they don't need that many people working there. They don't need thousands of people working there. They don't need to dig holes in the ground, billions of dollars. Like the Nuclear Waste Management Organization in Canada had $26 billion 22 years ago. It got $26 billion a day. Still haven't got a repository. And didn't grow a cent of interest, interestingly. That was your money, by the way. You're entitled to know where the interest goes if you're in Canada. There's an acceptance now that nuclear needs to be on par with non-emitting sources. Yeah, the Conference of Parties 28 was the first time nuclear was ever there at these batshit lunatic organized criminal group, UN. And so for 2 years now, we see UN, which is very powerful, but it doesn't have any authority over any country, promoting a renaissance in nuclear, but it doesn't matter. You can give them all the money you want. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the supply network. They don't have the willpower. And then you roll out the wealthy people. The founder of Amazon has developed small modular reactors, partnerships with nuclear providers. Well, you can't have small modular reactors with nuclear providers when they don't have one on the planet. They just don't have any. And 80 years later, they still don't have any. Do you really think that after 80 years, they're just going to magically come up with it? If it was true, they would just start building them, see, at the national laboratories to show you that they work. You're going to use it to transition to carbon-free electricity. How are you going to have carbon-free nuclear? How does that work when it's the dirtiest, most resource-intensive industry in human history? And the Union of Unconcerned Scientists, they're the ones that put us into trouble in the first place. They were supposed to be checks and balances, but they were created by the industry. They are the industry, right? The majority of the original Union of Unconcerned Scientists were from the Manhattan Project. The least trustworthy on the planet. Decades later, British nuclear tests in Australia still haunts local communities. It was kind of interesting this story showed up because James Lucid had put out a song a few days back about Maralinga, and that's what this story is basically about. Was there pains of conscience, I wonder? British nuclear tests in Australia still haunts the local communities because there was tests all over the country, not just the Maralinga, right? And, the Montebello Islands, which was one of the biggest tourist attractions for the last couple of decades. They found out last year that it's a nuclear wasteland and that the tourists shouldn't be there. So they said the tourists can go there, but only for about an hour. If you can only go to a nuclear wasteland for an hour, it's a fatal mistake. You're going to get sick down the road from that exposure. You're going to be breathing it in, too. To boost the nuclear capabilities, UK sought assistance from Australia. No, they just didn't want to contaminate United Kingdom. So they went and blew up their nuclear weapons in Australia. And they hate Australia. They hate it. They created Australia with prisoners, right? They hated Australia. And because they were able to thrive, Then they went over there and polluted the whole country, the water, the farmlands, the wonderful, beautiful coastlines, the beautiful archipelagos, the incredible 1,000 square mile reefs, all of it destroyed. Well, Australia allowed these experiments. No, they didn't. Australia didn't. A couple of corrupt politicians did. The lasting effects of the nuclear... Do you really think Australia would have said, yeah, go detonate nuclear and radiate our country? The lasting effects of the nuclear tests on the outback remain evident even 70 years later. Well, yeah, now Maralinga is off limits 70 years later. Archipelago, just incredible. They've done that with all these beautiful tropical paradises that we got. They went out and destroyed them, either evaporated them or contaminated them beyond reproach. The nuclear hasn't given us a single reason to like them. They had 80 years, and they managed to destroy everything. Between the 50s and the 60s, Britain carried out 12 nuclear tests in Australia, along with hundreds of smaller experiments. 7 tests took place in Maralinga. Now, they also detonated up to 700 dirty bombs, and Maralinga took a big percentage of them. They wrapped plutonium, uranium-235, the very essence of a dirty bomb, the worst type, and they detonated them with conventional explosives. It was hideous radioactive fallout, and that never goes away. That stuff is there for at least 250,000 years. The main trials were referred to as an Operation Buffalo and Operation Antler. Operation Buffalo. They just destroy everything, don't they? Even words. Although these were the most sizable tests, the smaller trials reportedly caused more extensive nuclear contamination. Yeah, they detonated over 700 dirty bombs. Some of them generated mushroom clouds that rose 47,000 feet, with radioactive fallout reaching as far as Townsville. No, the radioactive fallout in Adelaide was, 90,000 counts per minute of just gamma. That was from tests from... They waited for the wind to blow across Australia, by the way, before they set off the nuclear weapons. This was a purposeful poisoning of the entire country, the biosphere, the ecosystem, no fresh water, the farmlands, and the high populated areas. And it's a horrific story. It's a horrific story. The whole story, when you actually know the story. There's a really good documentary. I can't remember off the top of my head. I have to try to look it up again. I got it there somewhere. Britain completed its nuclear testing in Australia outback in 1963 after both nations signed the United Nations, which... Why is a corporation allowed to take over all these countries and influence all these countries? Maybe we should ask McDonald's what we should do next, because they have the same company structure. United Nations is 195 militaries. They're like a great big NATO. NATO's like their little pet chihuahua compared to UN. If cleanup efforts started in 1967, contaminated material buried in trenches and sealed with concrete. Well, the concrete will break down because of the Wigner effect. So they didn't clean it up. They made sure it went deep into the water tables. And you can't clean up Australia. The whole country is contaminated. In 1968, British physicist Noah Pearce released reports whose findings led Australia to absolve Britain of further responsibility at Maralinga. A British physicist got Britain off the hook. though it was later discovered the report was inaccurate. Do you really think that the scientists in Australia didn't know the difference? No, they poisoned them on purpose. That's why you see so much heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia. The Maralinga Committee, 1955. They call it a thorough cleanup, but how can you thoroughly clean up a nuclear meltdown? They don't just look like gangsters. They are gangsters. They're coward gangsters, though, right? They're not like the traditional gangsters where they're tough. These are not tough. And they granted the natives title to the land in 1985. A thorough cleanup. You can't thoroughly clean it up anyway. And to dig a hole and put it down in the surface by pouring concrete over and calling that a thorough cleanup. I completely disrespect the author of the who wrote this story, which is going to be probably UN, International Atomic Energy Agency lapdog. Didn't start till a decade later to clean up. There's not a cleanup. What are you talking about? If you didn't take down my other site when I was out looking for spiders, which had 24,800 subscribers for 5 years, didn't gain one, didn't lose one, with over 1,500 presentations on that site, I could have directed you to the Australia studies. I'm going to have to do another video, I guess. The Australian government undertook the project for 5 years, with total costs exceeding $170 million. 1993, Britain agreed to contribute 20 million euros or francs or pounds or whatever it is on an again, you can't clean up a nuclear meltdown. By 2000, all but 120 square kilometers of the roughly 3,200 square kilometers area was deemed safe for unrestricted access. How are you going to clean up 3,080 square kilometers? You can't. How are you going to get it back in the bottle? How are you going to get a genie back in the bottle when it's already covered the whole planet, all the coastlines, all the islands? They didn't clean up the islands. Maralinga is still off limits. Or Montebello. Why are they not talking about Maralinga? It's really interesting too. Reported in early 2000 that the plutonium contamination at the Rocky site had been incorrect by a factor of 10. It was 10 times worse than what they claimed. The underestimated of the plutonium contamination about an order of magnitude. Well, there's many more isotopes besides plutonium. So a magnitude is 10 times worse. Hot particles still exist in the soil. These are microscopic remnants of uranium plutonium. And due to the harsh environment of the Australian outback, are slowly releasing plutonium into the soil. Now slowly pulses that energy every second. And it's releasing large chunks of still splitting atoms, right? I love this. Researcher in protective gear. You can't protect yourself with 3 feet of lead, so how is a suit, a pair of overalls or paper suit going to protect you? Use your head. The chemicals present are between a few micrometers and nanometers in size. You can put 200 million atoms on the head of a needle. Infinitely smaller than what they're talking about. And you can't see it. And each one of those atoms, if you get it in your body, it sequesters in your muscles, your organs, your bones. Your body attacks it for the rest of your life with white blood cells. Every second, for the rest of your life. And eventually builds a sarcophagus around it. That's called a tumor. So it doesn't matter how small it is. Right, they're doing everything they can to downplay the story on top of that. I guess some things never change, right? Would be destroyed quickly in the presence of air. So here they are suggesting that the plutonium would be destroyed in the presence of air. Wait, now, it survived for 70 years. No problem at all. But if it's exposed to air, it's going to... It's simply not true. There's no basis for that statement. There's no foundation for that assertion. And that's a degenerate assertion, by the way. You really got to be a monster to write that statement. You can't even destroy it in an incinerator. Or even if you put it in battery acids, you can't destroy the anthropogenic man-made atoms. Very, very harmful atoms to everything with replicating cells. So what happened that time? Did I miss something? I must have triggered the little bastard. My phone accidentally. Yep. Yipper. Nuclear is so evil. But I'm Dana. You can call in at 709-589-4406. 709-589-4406. You can be the first caller of 2025. Let's get back here. Like, what a statement, though, to suggest that it could... Plutonium would be... Plutonium, like radioactive fallout, plutonium fallout, covers the whole planet, but it doesn't touch here. You got any idea how egregious that statement actually is? But this is what they're good at. They're really good. I mean, that's such an amazing statement, isn't it? It's just so hard to comprehend. Researchers found that plutonium has resulted in the continued release of radiation into the environment where it absorbed and ingested by humans, animals, and plants. So how could oxygen destroy it if it has these particular attributes, right? Plutonium killed all the animals and all the experiments with multiple tumors. So if you only get plutonium, you'll end up with 3 tumors: the skeleton tumors, bone tumors, lung tumors, and liver tumors. And the majority will die from the bone tumors, which are a nasty way to go. And then for children and developing animals and stuff like that, and insects, small, the newborns of the species, it mutates their stem cells. So as they're developing, it causes catastrophic health. And more research is needed regarding the breakdown of the particles. Well, no, it's not. They got just literally millions and millions and millions of studies just on plutonium. No, Dan, it gets destroyed by... they're so insane. There's no lie too big to tell. I'm just not going to read the rest of it because it upsets me. Food grown near the site is still too dangerous to consume. And many find plants are unable to survive in the now sterile soil because it kills the bacteria and the fungus. Jimmy Carter offered calm to the Pennsylvania after 3 Mile Island. Well, 3 Mile Island is the reason that most nuclear power plants have up to 100 sirens within 10 miles of it. So you can panic, not be calm, so you can panic and run away. And here they had a nuclear meltdown and everybody went to the plant. Well, don't know what one looks like. Let's go check it out. Hey, honey, we're going down to check out the nuclear meltdown. These are not words you want to be uttering. Carter visited the mid-state on April 1st, 1979. 4 days out, and they always like to use the word partial meltdown. Like, how can you have a partial meltdown? Because a meltdown means you're burning at around 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, right? That's going to cook off the water, and the minute the rest of the fuel is exposed, for instance, it's going to melt down because the zirconium cladding will catch fire if it's exposed to oxygen, if it's not covered in water. and then that'll cook off the uranium plutonium pellets inside, which are also coated with zirconium. Which, the zirconium was used in the old cameras, and they had this hammer would break the flash, and there would be this massive flash in the 20s, the dirty 30s, and so you get this massive flash for taking pictures, and if you go back and you look up old-fashioned flash cameras like the early 1900s, and when you see the ones where there's big puff of smoke rising up, that's zirconium. So those buildings are incredibly contaminated. All the people would have been incredibly contaminated. Right? Anything that radioactive fallout lands on. And that's why I'm so scared of, not only because of the radium that you used to use to wipe down all the antique furniture. That's why you don't want to buy antique furniture. What everybody should do if you got a Geiger counter is start going visiting antique furniture shops. And watch your Geiger counter go nuts when you get near the antique furniture, because the radium is never going to go away to use. They actually use radium to polish. Like, that's a horror story, the radium on its own, what they done. Radium lipstick, radium makeup. They were targeting the female to sterilize them, right? Radium suppositories. So, the president visiting. And this is Dick Thornburg there with the black glasses on. He was the new governor. He was only governor for about 60 days, knew nothing about nuclear. And he refused to evacuate people for 3 days. And then he said that the pregnant women and small children should evacuate because they didn't want a statistic showing up in the near future of the health impacts, right? They had no choice. But for 3 days, he refused to let people evacuate. It's truly a hideous monster from the histories. Kevin Blanche. Anybody don't know Kevin? Kevin's a very active anti-nuclear icon for 50 years, 60 years, I guess. And I was looking at his video. I was looking up Fukushima videos last night. And he had no views on it. I said, it's not possible. I went over to the video, of course, and he had 110 views. Let me put that up on the other screen, I guess. Yeah, he had 110 views, but YouTube said he had no views. That's how nuclear plays. There's only a couple of those out there. There's less than a handful of people out there. That is the honest people, right? Sincere and genuine. And so they're so terrified of any facet of the truth that they do stuff like that. They already got them censored down to nothing, but to disrespect them that way, it's just unbelievable, eh? Kevin's a good guy, man. He's been at this for a very, very long time. Since he was a kid, right? His dad used to carry him in his arms to the protests. And I think everybody in America, basically, in anti-nuclear would know Kevin. He shows up at all protests that he can make it to. That he can manage to raise the funds to get there. He's gone. U.S. battery capacity soars to nuclear scale, creates a golden opportunity for the grids. Again, why would you use batteries when you can use stuff like compressed air storage where you just dig mine shafts and compress air down there? Why use batteries? So battery storage in the United States was almost nothing in 2010 and 20.7 gigawatts in 2024. It's equivalent to the output of 20 nuclear reactors. But this was the year that where it really kind of took off, right? The rapid growth in storage saw 5 gigawatts added in the first half of 2024 alone. It's equivalent to 5 reactors. China just came out with a compressed air storage, which is equal to 2.5 reactors. Or I'm sorry, 2.5 gigawatt hours. And you can do almost 300 discharges a year, charge and discharges of compressed air storage. So you can actually buy the big windmills instead of producing power. All you do is compress air. But you can also just take extra energy from renewables and compress it into mine shafts. China's using existing salt caverns to do it. And they expect that to double this year, 2025. So they're expecting 20 gigawatts of batteries. But why do batteries? It's the most ineffective way to do it. For the money, you can probably have 5 times more compressed air storage for the same money. So why would you use batteries? Because the industry loves to be a nightmare. That's all they are. They're just good for one thing only, is destroying everybody's future. Experience and expertise offered for the proposed small modular reactors here in Ontario, Canada. First off, we don't have small modular reactors, so you can't have experience and you can't have expertise. It's pretty crazy when you actually look at the big picture, right? Yeah, it's crazy that because now I just had to start a new folder for 2025. And that folder will have 12 other folders in it: January, February, March, April, May, all 2025. It blows my mind, eh? So on my last show, we covered a disturbing story from Japan that got literally no views over several days. Assessment of individual external exposure doses based on environmental radiation. So the studies are looking at external doses. And when you look up external doses in the study, you had 46 mentions of external, and you had 0, no matches whatsoever of internal. And so what it turned out was that the study looked at natural radiation. You really got to watch the video. It's a really good video because it explains to you how they're murdering everybody. They didn't look at internal exposures in a nuclear wasteland. And that was one of the reasons that we had that poll tonight. Should you avoid food from Japan anywhere in the world? Because the entire country was covered in deadly and radioactive fallout. And yeah, you absolutely, unequivocally have to avoid any consumables. There's 0 possibility I would buy a vehicle from Japan. You folks are great, man. Model to predict individual external exposure doses was validated. External doses. I'm not going to go through it again, but you can go watch the presentation. It's a really good video. We just stuck nice, calm, cool, collect. I think. I shouldn't say anything. I get pretty upset sometimes. So the whole study was about external exposures, and then they didn't mention any isotopes in the whole study, and this was used to justify moving people into a nuclear wasteland or keeping them in a nuclear wasteland, or denying them medical help, or denying we got a little spammer, or denying them External exposure, external. And so that's used to murder the children and the women and the elderly. The study was. What a, not saying nothing is wrong. See, I can't just not say nothing. Because there's so many out there that'll promote the poisoning of everybody. My voice is tiny, right? It's very, very tiny. And what do I have? I got 12 likes. 12 likes. I laugh when I see low numbers like that. I've been at this particular itineration for over a decade straight, doing these shows 5 days a week. And we've done years of research expeditions. We got a snowstorm coming finally. Going to coat the province apparently Sunday and Monday. I'm not sure if we're going to get it. We're on the Avalon Peninsula. It's a little spick of land out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And I wasn't expecting to get snow where I'm to. I'm intending to trail it out to the trails. Because we have 600 miles of groomed trails. We're going to be going out looking for signs of life, just to document the extinction event. Because Fukushima is an extinction event. Fukushima is an extinction event. External exposures. It's really something, isn't it? And even in the nuclear meltdown, the no-go zones / nuclear wastelands, they have the arrogance to put those fractions of the truth there. It's really disappointing that they think they're humans. And don't be surprised, because this is the same people who orchestrated the world's media pretending they're in the fuel pools at the top of Reactor 4 and Reactor 3, for instance, when the buildings don't even exist. And the significance of that is catastrophic to everything with replicating cells on the entire planet, right? It's humiliating that these people think they're humans. It's frightening, really, right, isn't it? The radioactive fallout on the west coast of Canada, United States. The French government produced a study. Was shown, this is the French government itself, and that model is only based on 8 days. It was shown 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. These are numbers we've never heard tell of pre-Fukushima. We never conceived of pre-Fukushima. This is the French's model based on 16 days when the model stops. So there's some significant rainfall covering the whole radioactive rainfall, radioactive fallout covering the entire planet in 15 days. And they're only acknowledging cesium-137, which is brutal, by the way, because it pulses energy 600 feet every second. So there's no problem pulsing through your house, neighbor's house, and then into your house and destroying your chromosomes, your DNA, your cells. But that plume also, we know, would have had 1 million atoms of xenon-133 on the ground, disposition radioactive fallout per square meter. We know it also had 20 million particles, which is way worse than the atoms. They're much more energetic, and iodine-133 is very energetic. And there's 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 31 times more iodine-129. Also was in them, So the plume wasn't just a single isotope. And when you're inhaling these particles, the exposures increases by a factor of 1 trillion. And when you look at this plume model here of the Neptunium-239 dispersal, it's got a 2.5 day half-life. And so that would have been a brutal disposition. It's got 25 days, so there's 10 half-lives. So 25 days was more than enough for it to to cover the whole planet. I just want to put this headline over here for when I come back. We'll be looking at that every day. That study is how they're justifying the doses. So you don't want to eat food from Japan. You don't want to go there. You want to avoid all product from there. And if you got to get into a fist fight with your loved ones to stop them going there, that's what I would do. I wouldn't hesitate. So here was the updated model. No, this was the original model from France's government of radioactive fallout. And locally, in 2012, this is the first year, well, there wasn't just 865,000 extra cancers. Pre-Fukushima for thyroid tumors for children were 1 in a million. Post-Fukushima in the first year, 358,000 out of a million. It was 13,646 out of 38,000 when it was 1 in a million pre-Fukushima. You don't want to eat food from a place that is causing those massive, inconceivable, unimaginable health effects. And National Cancer Center the same year was an extra 865,000 cancers. So not everybody got health care, not everybody was diagnosed, right? And I just wanted to put the first show of the year. It's not going to be a hard show. I guess we'll call it quits here, probably. Remember, the buildings actually melted down. Yeah, the media says it didn't, but the buildings melted down. And the media should be arrested and charged under the racketeering statutes for doing that. It's never too late to hold them accountable for doing that. These are the worst crimes against humanity that I can't... I would have to do 100 shows to articulate why it's so harmful. And I might just do that, who knows. And it wasn't just them. There was a lot of media pretending they were at the top of buildings that don't exist. The only reason they're doing it is because Fukushima is an extinction event. Like, we've done the research expeditions for years, for 6 years. And species to your left now are gone. That's not an opinion. We went out for 6 years, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean, all the way from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, year after year, to see if the species to your left recovered to the right. They didn't. And what I'm showing you is just a fraction of the species. Hopefully it's enough to get you to appreciate what I'm trying to say to you and why I'm working so hard for all these years and why I'm still here every day that I can. And it's because I actually care, right? I love everybody. I love all the species. I just want to see humanity have a future. That's all I want, is humanity to have a future. I don't think that's a bad thing, is it? And I've paid a wicked price to build this whole fleet, to get out there for 6 years and discover that the radioactive fallout has destroyed everything. The species to your left are now gone. They're not coming back. They're exterminated. And we went back for 6 years. And after 6 years, if the species didn't recover, then the ocean, the food chain is 100% broken. And we have the documentation of the radioactive fallout. I mean, this model is only based on 20 days to your left, top left. Same as this one, only based on 20 days. We have all the studies, rather, from the government. Right, here's the French government, right? Remember, this stuff never goes away. And neither do we. And neither does the nuclear. And we are here to go to war every day so you can have a future, hopefully. So we're going to close the poll down. We'll call it a night. We'll pick up on Sunday. We'll get back up full speed, right up to right up to smashing speed to the nuclear industry. It's going to be a good year beating the shit out of the nuclear. There's never a bad day when you're beating the crap out of nuclear. It's always a good day. Let's close down the poll. We'll call it a night. Should you avoid food from Japan because the entire country was covered in permanent, deadly radioactive fallout? 13 votes, 13 likes, and 22 votes. Imagine being so... we're just one little show. We're a very tiny show, but the industry hates us. They stalk us. They censor the shit out of us. They make up lies. They attack me constantly. Because the truth is that powerful. You should try it sometime. You know what I mean. James came out with a couple of great songs the weekend. You got to be on the ball to keep up with him now because he's getting prolific, which is excellent for the planet. And he's produced a couple of great Demaralinga. We played that. Can't play all of his music because you can't keep up with it. Thank goodness. We can certainly listen to it. This video blew my mind. He does all the graphics and the music. He's got many different genres. And you'll find links at the bottom of my description to James. So we're going to play this song here tonight. I got to check my audio so I don't play it too loud. There we go. Because I know I mess this up sometimes. You got such high quality, right? We'll see everybody on Sunday. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. Take care, folks.
It's done.